She can get into something material that doesn't interest me at all, like money, to come back and make a fortune, just like he has made a fortune. And she was as poor as a church mouse when she first met me. Neville and his sayings, right? Guys and girls, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing very, very well. And today I'm going to share with you an incredibly powerful talk from Mr. Neville Lancelot Goddard, which is called The Law of Identical Harvest. All right? I'll tell you in advance, it's not that short. It's a long lecture, but it covers a lot of topics. Mainly, it gives us a lot of examples and shares a lot of experiences. So I think it's very powerful. It's gonna clear up a lot of doubts for everyone who connects with Neville, right? Okay? So, let's begin. The law of identical harvest says, now I can say the same thing over and over again. And finally, in a little while, people get it and understand it. So, I can tell you night after night that all things exist in the human imagination. And I can tell you that man is all imagination. And that God is man and exists in us and we in him. That the eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. He's quoting Blake. That is the divine body we call Jesus Christ in the scriptures. And then he says, and because of prior conditioning, we may question that or hesitate to take it seriously. I agree with Neville here. Because it happens to all of us, right? Even to you who watch video after video after video. And, well, many times there's still some doubt left, you know? For not seeing the things we want at the moment, we say they have to appear. So what happens? Neville says doubt and fear appear and so on. So, he says, and due to prior conditioning, we may question that or hesitate to take it seriously. Tonight, I hope I can show you. Tonight, I hope I can show you through stories how true this is. You may never forget yourself as much as I would like you to. But I'll still tell you. Pay attention, this is important. He says, you may never be able to forget yourself. To forget yourself, your personality, the mask we all wear, all of us. Me, Raul, you, Azucena, you, Maria, you, Martin, Luis, Pedro, whatever your name is. That's the mask we wear, so he says. You may never forget yourself as much as I would like you to. I want you to do it so that you can recognize God within you. But I'll tell you anyway. He says, last Saturday, a friend of mine from New York came during the week and was here on Friday. And I invited her to dinner on Saturday with some other friends of hers from around here. She called during the day. And she asked me if she could come early, if she could come at 4 instead of 5, when I had invited them, because she had things to tell me, and they wouldn't understand. And she would feel uncomfortable discussing these things in the presence of others. Sure, the girl requested a meeting with you first to discuss her concerns, right? That happens to me too, and to others new to the school. Suddenly, during a session or call, they say, it's just that, Raul, I can't talk about these things with just anyone. So that's why they feel so comfortable there, right? Because there's no judgment there. And when they talk to me and we discuss their goals, their assumptions, the doubts they bring and how we clear them up, so it's something really cool. So I totally get this. He says, now let me go back a bit with this lady. I met her in this city about 20-something years ago. She was a beautiful young woman of about 30, a model, and she had bought a small house for her parents and was paying the mortgage. And she told me this was about 20-something years ago, and now she mentions her model friend. No, his name is Luis. She says, I've always dreamed of going to Paris and I really don't have the money. I have enough in the bank to fly economy and stay there modestly for just 1 week. Go to some hotel, a small one, or maybe to a little guest house, and just for 1 week, I couldn't afford more than that, and even that seems stupid. Now, when I think that I'm still paying for my parents' house, I mean, the woman was already getting overwhelmed by everything in front of her and her obligations, right? Which is very common, he says, so I told him. Neville answers him, so I told him, you're asking the wrong person for advice because I'm not a rational person when it comes to the world. For me, I don't go along with the rational mind, I am. I'm talking about a completely different principle. I'm talking about imagination. And imagination for me is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ for me is God, and there is nothing but God, and all things are possible for God. If you want me to give you a reason to go or not to go, don't ask me. You want to go and you have just enough for at most a brief week in Paris, traveling economy, living modestly, and coming back. Well, she didn't tell me what she would do, but she did leave. On her second day in Paris, on a blind date, she met a man 23 years older than her. He had been married. He had been married 5 times. He had no children, but they fell in love. He divorced his 5th wife. He married her, and they were blessed with a son. The spitting image of that man. When I saw pictures of him, he was born in Russia. When I saw pictures of him, they might as well have been pictures of his little son. Over the years, the man did very well. She inherited a fortune, international businesses, factories here in our country, factories in Paris, factories in Puerto Rico, and factories everywhere. He was a very, very rich man. And he was crazy about his son. Well, when the boy was about 2.5 years old, and one night I had a vision. Neville says he had a vision. He says, I saw a little boy, he was about 5 years old, beautiful beyond all measure, and he told me that I was his father. I said, well, if I'm your father, then when are you going to come to earth and be my son? If I'm your father, will you come to earth and be my son? He answered, yes. And I said to him, when? He answered, November 10th. I said, really? This was at the end of September. So I told my wife the next morning, my wife Bill. Okay, I told my wife the next morning. I said, honey, do you know you're going to have a baby on November 10th? She answered, Neville, really? I really believe in everything you teach, but after all, this is ridiculous. I'm not even pregnant. This is the end of September. I'm going to have a S on November 10th? No, that's completely out of the question. And I told him, that's fine. That's what he told me anyway. That night in New York City at my lecture, this lady showed up. Her little son was 2.5 years old, and she was extremely pregnant. It looked like she could have the baby at any moment. So I said to her, when are you expecting your baby boy? She said, a son? No, I'm going to have a daughter. Joseph and I want a daughter. We don't want any sons because we already have our son, she says. I asked her, so when are you expecting your baby boy? To which she replied, the doctor said at the beginning of January. I said to her, and your son is due tomorrow on November 10th. Can I tell you his name? His name is Neville Mark, or Neville Marcos in Spanish, because that's what he told me, Neville Mark. Well, on November 10th, she had her little son and she named him Neville Mark Bueno. The family was now 4, the 2 children, and they grew up, and when the first one, Larry, looked just like his father, the one I just talked about. When he turned 18, they sent him to college in England. And one Saturday morning, he received a call. He got a call from her and she told me Larry is dead. I mean, her friend calls Neville and says, Larry is dead. She didn't prepare me at all. It was just Larry is dead. And I said to her, what are you talking about? And she told me, I just got a call from the university director in London saying that Larry died suddenly today. In this car accident, there were 5 people in the car, but he was the only one who died. The others survived. He wasn't driving the car, he was in the car. And we're leaving in an hour. Joseph, Neville, and I are leaving in an hour to go to London. And that's what they did. They brought back Larry's ashes and scattered them in Central Park. She went into shock, completely stunned, and for 2 months she wasn't here. Her husband called me long distance, wrote to me about what to do. He tells me he doesn't know what to do. Should I place her in some institution? Should I bring someone because she's not here? She refuses to be part of this world. Well, it's logical, isn't it? I mean, given this whole situation, it's logical that she would be in that state of shock, he says. Neville says. But you don't know this woman. She has a determination that's like steel. You can't sway her. She can take any goal in this world and achieve it. And now she had a goal. She had to find out about Larry. So pause. This story goes back several years when I started the channel. It was one of those short videos I used to post about Neville's examples and manifestations, right? And this is one that I remember uploading back then. The lady managed to do it. She says she was extremely intense, as Neville said. So here she tells us the whole story about her friend, right? So she says she can take any goal in this world and achieve it. And now she had a goal. She had to find out about Larry. If what I'm teaching is true, that all things exist in the human imagination, then Larry existed in her imagination and she had to see him, touch him, and know that he survived. She said, my religion failed me, my philosophies failed me. I couldn't open a book, I couldn't in any way bring myself to hold on. And I lived in this state, completely in shock to the despair of my family. And on this morning, 2 months later, I felt something rise up inside me, rising and rising. And then, from my own being, here comes Larry. He's sitting next to this chair in my room. And it's my room. She lived on the 33rd floor on Central Park south of Central Park. Then the woman continues saying, here is Larry. And then I said, Larry is there. Well, I can put myself there too. And she did. I sat right next to him and I felt him. Then I brought Neville and he sat next to me, and there we were, the 3 of us. I've never seen Larry look so handsome. His face was like velvet. You've never seen such beautiful skin as Larry's, and we communicated without using words. And he told me, Mother, I didn't want to hurt you. And here he is talking to me without using any words, but he's telling me and I'm listening. And then I said to Neville, his son Neville, go and look for Dad. Dad was in the living room. Dad was in the living room then. These were the early hours of the morning, around 6 a.m., and I tell him, go get your father and tell Dad to come. And the moment he got up and started walking toward the living room to get his father, something happened in her and something broke, and then everything faded away. But she said at that moment I was completely healed. I had a pain that no doctor could help, no philosopher could help, no religious person could help, no book could help. Here I am with a pain that no one could understand. It was a physical pain. My body was tormented by it. And at that moment, I was completely freed from all sense of loss and all sense of pain. And I proved that all things exist in my own wonderful human imagination. And that's where Larry was. I brought him out as an objective being, apparently independent of my perception of him, and he sat next to that chair, on the arm of the chair, that big chair in my room, and Neville sat on the other arm. I sent Neville to call his dad, and then I entered. After the state broke, then I got out of bed and went to the living room, and there was Joseph reading the newspaper, and I told him what had just happened. And you know, he was like a shadow that spoke. I looked at my husband, and here he is, just a shadow, a talking shadow. That day I had to go out and walk down the street shopping, and everyone was nothing but shadows talking shadows. The whole vast world was nothing but a shadow. And that's it. That's where his friend's experience ends. And now Neville continues. And so when we say that everything you contemplate, even though it appears outside, is actually inside, your own wonderful human imagination, of which this world of mortality is nothing but a shadow. Again, quoting Blake, he says, everything here seems so real, you cut it and it bleeds, but it's just a shadow. And she healed instantly when she conjured her son from her own being and made him sit on the arm of the chair. And she herself drew herself out from there and sat in the center of that chair. And then she brought Neville, who was fast asleep in his own room. And then she said to him, go and look for your father, let him come and see how beautiful Larry is with skin like velvet. What does he say? Absolutely charming. She had never seen him so beautiful. And he was saying to her mother, I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt you. And then everything faded away and she realized that what I told you before, that all things exist in the human imagination, was true. We are living in a world of shadows. Pay attention to what it tells us here. It says we are living in a world of shadows. For Neville, this three-dimensional world is a world of death. Don't see it from the negative perspective of what the word death implies, right? For Neville, he says that this three-dimensional world we experience is a world of death, and we come down to give it life. All right, check what it says here. It says we are living in a world of shadows. The immortal man is your own wonderful human imagination. That man can never die. That is Jesus Christ. You are the Lord Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ is not some intangible thing you talk about. Imagination is defined in the dictionary as the faculty of the mind to form images. It is defined as that which can conjure up and create an idea or an image independent of objective reality. This is called reality independent of objective reality, and what it conjures is called the unreal. What is it? A simple apprehension of objective facts. Objective objects in this world, that's what they call sensory perception and therefore reality. In other words, he's making the distinction between what is perceived as imagination and what is perceived as real. All right? He says if it's not present, that's unreal and therefore imagination. This is now considered real. This. I imagine that at that moment he was probably pointing at the pulpit or the microphone, I don't know. But he says this is now considered real. And I think about the home I left an hour ago, the home I expect to return to tonight, an hour from now, that because it is not present to my senses, that is unreal, that is imagination. This too, though I don't know it, is real, because it is present to my senses. And I tell you that it's just the opposite. The whole vast world exists within human imagination. And if you're as intense as that woman, her friend Louise, I've never met anyone more intense than this woman. She told me, here's a story that I told you about. I uploaded a video about it a long time ago, some years ago now. And she told me, we were notified that we had to vacate our business premises, which is the building on 57th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison. 5th Avenue is part of Central Park, on the right side, north right. So she says this, and what comes to my mind is the map, right? She says, we were notified that we had to vacate our business premises, which is the building on 57th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison. A very expensive neighborhood where you pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year in rent. For an area that isn't as big as this, certainly not as big as this room, just one floor. He's a designer, the husband Louis married, he has his factories in London, in Paris, factories in New York, factories in Puerto Rico. And here, an area that's not as big as this, it's long and narrow. And if I took the square footage of this room, that place couldn't be that big. And he was paying $65,000, $70,000 a year in rent. In his own place to live, he was paying $1,250 or $1,350 a month for that apartment he had on the 33rd floor. On the 33rd floor that he had, That's a lot of money besides running businesses and meeting payroll for maybe 150 or 200 people every week. That adds up to a fortune. I mean, he was a top tier businessman, right? He says he received the notification that they were going to end his lease because IBM, International Business Machines, IBM, the computer and digital services company, etc., that company is still operating. I worked at IBM actually many years ago. He says they bought the building to demolish it and build a new one. He says for themselves, their headquarters in New York City. He had to leave. He started giving her all kinds of reasons why he couldn't find a place. She told him, "Don't tell me what you don't want." I can perfectly imagine the lady saying to him, like wives say to their husbands, right? The way they tell us, don't tell me what you don't want. Don't say what can't be done, tell me what you want. Name them. I don't care how many you name, just say them. But he told him, I want a building on 57th Street between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. And they say there's no building for sale, not even for rent, but certainly not for sale. Again, he says, don't tell me what isn't. Tell me what you want now. He said, we have 18 months left in our current apartment. It costs $1,250. I would like to move and reduce our rent, okay? And reduce our rent, okay? But who's going to pay $1,250 and also take over my lease? Again, Luis answers him, don't tell me who's going to do it, tell me what you want. Well, that's what I want. I want to get out of that lease and find a place just as nice, as high up as this one, because they were on the 33rd floor somewhere up in the 30s where I can have a view and not pay that amount of money. He gave him more than 12 things. She has the ability to enter these states and bring them out, and they're all targets for her. He found the place. 41 West 57th Street. An 8-story building. It wasn't for sale, but she didn't care about what's for sale or not. She got it. They're there right now. Someone moved in after she let go of the apartment in her mind's eye, and she actually moved into another one right next to this one on 57th Street. Someone came in and said, I'll take over your lease for the same rent, $1,250. And then she found the place on the 30th floor, right next to where they now own the 8-story building for $650 a month, which translates to $600. $150 a month, reducing it by $600. Everything he asked for, she did. That's her intensity. And now she was determined to find out what happened to Larry. She wanted to prove for her own satisfaction that Larry survived, that Larry is real, that he is not just a dream, that her Larry is a solid reality, and that she could put her hand on Larry, talk to Larry, and communicate with Larry. And everything became a reality for her. That's Louise. She has proven beyond any doubt the truth of what I try to tell everyone I meet. That imagining creates reality. Because imagining is God in action. That human imagination is Jesus Christ, and there is no other Jesus Christ. That is the Lord Jesus Christ of the Scriptures. So I'm not saying that you are going to be as innocent or as intense as her. I wish you were. She can get involved in some material thing that doesn't interest me at all, like money. Go back and make a fortune, just like she has made a fortune. And she was as poor as a church mouse when she first met me. I saw myself in Neville and his sayings, right? She was as poor as a church mouse when she first heard me, she says. She had never heard such strange, peculiar, and irrational statements as the ones she heard from me. And her first contact with me was to ask me this question: what should I do? Should I go to Paris? Isn't it rational? And I told her, I'm not talking about anything rational in this world. I'm talking about a power that isn't rational. The rational mind is simply the interference between the being you are and this supposed world you believe is so real. I'm going to repeat this again. Pay attention. I told him, I'm not talking about anything rational in this world. I'm talking about a power that isn't rational. Here. The rational mind is simply the interference between the being you are and this supposed world you believe is so real. Isn't it? The rational mind. Let it be whatever it wants to be. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about something else entirely. And the world calls this being I'm talking about Jesus Christ, but they don't know Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is a being. He's not something peculiar like a friend wrote to me the other day. He's not an essence. Imagination is not a vague essence, as he told me. Imagination is a being. It is a majestic being. A being of infinite love. But a being. Well, now you've heard me tell the story of my dear friend Mello. Here I'm going to tell another story about her friend Mello, who is only 8 or 9 years old. She says, well, I received another letter from her, and in another letter she said, I attended your lecture. You know, it's the girl speaking. At the end of your conference, you say that this girl is Pedro. And when you die, she will see the same king she saw when I took her to France. This part is a little bit strange, but actually, what Mello, the girl, is saying with this encapsulates the idea. She's talking about the promise. All right, those who get it will understand. If not, I'll explain, she says. And you know what? At the end of your talk, you took off your jacket, but I didn't see you take off your jacket. I saw you take off your skin. You took off your skin, and I could see right through you. And right behind you, the king I saw in France. And you know what? He was you. And next to the king, there was a tombstone. And on the tombstone, the word Neville was written. And then he faded away, and everything faded away. And then I woke up. Wasn't it amazing? And then Neville here, yeah? I mean, he's talking about Mello. And then, he says, and she spells the word incredible in a funny way. Credible, incredible. But she says it in English. So then in the original conference, well, it throws you off. What she says is funny. Then he says, it reminds me of my little daughter when she was 4 years old. And someone asked her, what does your father do for a living? And she answered, he is a lecturador. And I had never heard the word lecturador before. But I always think of Vicky and her word. And if someone gave us something, for example, for Christmas or something like that, and you couldn't figure out what the heck it was, what its purpose was, then her mother would say, I wonder if it's functional. She couldn't pronounce the word functional, and she would say functional, but they say it in English. Well, she couldn't say functional. All right? All right, I've never heard the word functional again since then, but I think of functional. I mean, now I hear it the way Vicky used to say it, you know? His daughter Victoria. So nowadays, if we receive something that we can't fully understand what it is, which happens very often at Christmas, you get all kinds of things. You have no idea what the heck they are or what you could possibly do with them. That's why you put them in a gift drawer, so someone else can deal with it when you give it to them a year later. So when someone gave him something, he would keep it, and then he would give it away, because he didn't use it. That's also funny, isn't it? He says, and here it is. And I think of functional. It's not functional. He says, well, now she said, incredible. Isn't that lovely? Talking about Mello, right? Her friend. I have all her little letters now. But she saw the king. And she saw the tombstone. I mean, here he's already giving his interpretation of the girl's dream, right? He says, I have all her little letters now. But she saw the king, and she saw the tombstone, and she saw where that garment, which was just a symbol of the physical clothing, was taken away. When he told her that he had taken off the garment, and here is the clothing taken off, and buried under that tombstone, and on earth he was called Neville. But beyond that, she saw the king. I mean, here's how I understand it. That she's referring to what's beyond, which is the promise. Okay? She says, behold your king. And he said, and it was you. And then it faded away. Wasn't that amazing? So I tell you, you are an infinite being. I mean, this infinite being that remains after you take off the suit, the costume, whatever you want to call it. Okay? He says, you are an infinite being, an immortal being. This infinite being comes down and gives life to what I'm describing, the world of death, as Neville calls it. You did not begin in your mother's womb. Pay attention. You did not begin in your mother's womb, and you do not end in the grave. You are forever and ever, and you are that king, that is, the king from Melo's vision. One day you will awaken and you will be nothing less than the being spoken of in the scriptures as Jesus Christ. There is only one Jesus Christ in the world. There is only God in the world, and you, and we will be one. One body, one spirit, one Lord, one God, and Father of all. Let no one tell you, because he preceded you in awakening, that they have a higher rank than you. I like this too. No one is more or less. Don't let anyone tell you they're better than you. Don't let anyone tell you that, just because they awakened before you. This is really great, because sometimes we see that too. Many people experience this when spiritual ego comes up, you know? I mean, that they have a higher rank than you. No one has a higher rank, even if not. Even if they precede someone else in the order of awakening. Because there is only one being that is awakening, and that one being is God. And God is your own wonderful human imagination. Don't let anyone say you're less in that way, okay? I love that. He says, if only they could be as intense as Luis when it comes to physical things. In the immediate future, they could get anything they want in this world. Personally, I have no desire for such things, none at all. But she has it all, and good for her. She does. Let her have it to the fullest. Okay? She says this is good. She says she came and insisted 4 years ago on giving me a certain painting, because I was just flattering her. I expressed an opinion about this painting, which she had made as a copy of a great painting. It wasn't a good painting, the original was, and she offered it to me. And I told her no, I won't accept it. I'm going to California. I'm definitely not going to take that big frame and bring it back to California. Okay, I mean, he complimented the painting she made. I mean, he told her, look how beautiful it is, and she wanted to give it to him as a gift. They were friends. And he told her, no, I won't accept it. I'm going to California, and I'm not going to be carrying the painting around. He said, and you know what? A friend of mine, he's here tonight, went on a business trip to New York, and she convinced him. He decided to bring it, and he brought it to me. I hung it up for about 2 years, and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I took it, and I buried it in a small closet. I mean, he hung it up, and then he said, that's it, I'm going to change. He took it down and put it away. He says, and she came and said to me, where is the painting? And I told her, well, I had it hanging for 2 years, and then I got a little upset. I wanted to change the room, and where is it? She asked. I said, well, here it is. Fortunately, I hadn't given it away. And then she said, I'm going to take it. Well, okay, take it. And she did. She took the painting, and she's going to take it back to New York City again. That's how intense that woman is. Money is important. It's important in everything she does. But when it came to this, the loss of her son, she went into shock. She didn't find comfort in religion, and she couldn't find comfort in books. She couldn't find comfort in anything. Everything went out the window. She was determined to prove her son Larry had survived. Since all she could hold on to was that everything exists in human imagination. And if that's true, well, then he's going to come out of me. He'll come out of me, and I'll know he truly exists, that he survived that cremation. Because she returned with the ashes, went to Central Park, scattered them around the tree, and then Larry arrived, sitting next to a chair, and she puts herself in the chair, and she puts Neville on the other side of the chair. And here she is continuing. But I tell you, how intense the woman is, when I tell her that on November 10th, if she has a son, his name is Neville Mark. She was determined that she was not going to have a child, that she was going to have a daughter. Check this out. He says, I said, all right, if it's a boy, his name is Neville Mark. Well, I haven't seen Neville in 4 years. The last time I saw him, he came down, and he spent 3 weeks with us in Barbados. And he was a very, very handsome boy with long hair down past his shoulder, but unusually good looking. She tells me now that he's about 6 feet tall, even more impressive. He just turned 18. And he does all the cooking for them now. They don't need any help anymore because they have all the money in the world. He does the cooking, he does the laundry, all the ironing, all the sewing, he does it all. So she got her wish. She got a girl. And I got my son. He was a son. He makes the dresses, of course. His father is a designer. He's going to inherit all that fabulous stuff. The father is 77 years old. So in the not too distant future, he'll inherit this huge thing. But he loves to sew, and he loves to iron clothes, and he likes all these things. Now he goes to school to study clothing design and tailoring and all those things. And so with his long hair and that very, very beautiful skin of his, undoubtedly she does have her daughter, and I have my son in him. So look, we both got what we wanted. I mean, he's talking about the mystical experience he had when he met this boy, or when he was a child in his dreams, okay? And she told me, do you remember anything in the past concerning Neville? Because you saw him before I did? And I told her, I can only tell you that he came to me. This very handsome 5-year-old boy told me I was his father. Well, you know, Louise, I've never met you in person. Therefore, physically speaking, I certainly am not his father. But throughout infinity, these cross currents, what is he saying here? For someone watching the lecture who doesn't know Neville, they'll be like, was he his son physically or what? Here he's clarifying it. He says, well, you know, Luis, I have never met you in person. Therefore, physically speaking, I certainly am not his father. But throughout infinity, these cross currents, what I understand here is that everything exists. There are infinite possibilities. So that could be one. You know, who knows how all these things are connected throughout eternity? He called me his father. At the time, I wondered, but when are you coming? At the time, I asked him, but when are you going to come? Because I knew this was a vision and I knew he was not my son in this world. I met my little daughter Vicky when she came to me at the age of 4, and she also called me dad. And I said, yes, you were my daughter. And I said to her, if you are my daughter, if I am your dad, then what is your name? To which she replied, she said Victoria and walked away dancing. So when she was born, I named her Victoria. She doesn't have a middle name. She didn't give me a middle name. She said, my name is Victoria. So I named her Victoria. And now everyone knows her as Vicky, but she doesn't have a middle name. I saw her so vividly when she appeared to me, when she appeared before me. My wife was about 5 months pregnant, and I said, we're going to have a girl and her name is Victoria. He says, well, she came into the world and she didn't look anything like the girl I saw. But of course, she grew up to become that girl. Because when she was born, she looked exactly like Gandhi. Not a hair on her head, strange ears, just like a little descendant of Gandhi. At the age of 4, with a mass of curls, she was the spitting image of the girl I saw when she appeared to me in the vision. Let's say at 4 or 5 years old. And this boy, when he was 4 or 5 years old, looked exactly like him, this handsome, beautiful boy. And today they say he's simply deliriously beautiful. 6 feet tall, 18 years old with his long hair, and he makes his own clothes, does all the ironing, sews, does everything at home. And so Luis's determination didn't come in a physical form as a daughter, but it came in spirit as a daughter. And I arrived, and my vision was true. He arrived as a boy just as I saw him and told me his name was Neville Mark, and that's why he's called Neville Mark. He is known as Neville. So I'm talking to you about the power within you. And that power is your own wonderful human imagination. And that is the only God in the world. There is no other God. He is the Jesus Christ of the Scriptures. So tonight, take it seriously. If you really have a goal in this world and you're waiting for something outside to make it happen, forget it. Do it in your own wonderful human imagination. Simply bring it into existence in your own imagination. Conjure up a scene that implies the fulfillment of that dream and lose yourself in the act as you contemplate it, and lose yourself completely in that state. If you are completely absorbed in it, you will objectify it. But even if you don't have that intensity, if you lose yourself in it and feel that the imaginal act is true, then let it go. In a way you don't know, it will become true. It will objectify itself on the screen of space. And what the world calls reality, which is in truth only a world of shadows, as she so clearly described, lasted 24 hours. And then everything returned to what the world calls a normal world. But in that interval, in that precise moment, she was healed and the pain left her. The sense of loss left her. And not once since that moment has it ever returned. No sense of loss, no pain. And she is now the same powerful woman she was before that horrible accident that took him out of her life. It took him. And she discovered the truth she had been applying to things. And now she knows it's true in the deepest sense of the word. That all things exist in the human imagination and that everything you contemplate, even though it appears outside, is inside. In your own wonderful human imagination, of which this world of mortality is nothing but a shadow. And all this objective reality is only produced through imagining. I don't care what it is, this room here was imagined first. The clothes you're wearing, all of that was imagined. Imagination came before the thing you now call real in the world. But man doesn't know it. And his memory is so short that he forgets the imaginal act and then the harvest he will one day reap. And when he is confronted with the harvest, he cannot relate it to anything he has ever done that could have produced it. And yet, everything that comes into his world, he made it, but he doesn't remember. Because his memory is faulty. That's powerful. One day he will wake up, and when he does, he is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. He is the Lord Jesus Christ. He is Jehovah. He says it's a bit long, but it's good. So that's the story. You might wonder what happened when it felt like there was so much to live for. He brought her this intense story that everything is inside her now. So, start using it lovingly because it's in you anyway, and don't use it unlovingly. You can have anything you want in this world, but do it with the same intensity. Do it lovingly, because God is not only your own wonderful human imagination. God is infinite love, and your imagination is not a vague essence. It is a being, a majestic being that can be seen. And when you see him, you will see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and one day you too will take off the coat and others will not see it. But anyone with perceptive eyes will see it, and they will see that you took off your body, you took off your skin, and through that transparent body you now wear, there is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And then, after that ends, you hear the recording noise, and it cuts off. That's where the lecture ends. So it's really good because it tells us all about the friendship she had with her friend Louise and how she managed to get everything from material things to the mystical experiences she had with her son. All right? Neville tells us about many experiences he had as well, spiritual ones, like when he saw his nephew or when he saw his accountant after he passed away. He said, "This is a world of death, and we give it life when we come to experience it." So this is a different vision, more mystical, deeper. For those who aren't so interested in this side of Neville, that's completely valid. It's okay. Again, what he's telling us here is great. No one is better than another just because they're more awake than someone else. That's good. So, if right now what matters to you, what interests you is more about manifesting things, that's fine. It's okay. It doesn't make you more or less. That's something important, all right? So I hope you enjoyed this lecture, which was long, but for me it's really great. I really enjoy reading them. So tell me in the comments which part of the talk you liked the most. Also, what do you think about the promise, or are you more into the topic of manifestation of physical things? Or if it's a mix of both, that's totally valid too. So, well, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for making it this far and for joining me in reading Neville. I send you all a big, strong hug, and without further ado, from Master Your Mind with Raul, I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.